An account of the entry of His Majesty Habibullah Khan, Emir of Afghanistan, into Freemasonry, by Lieutenant Colonel Sir A. Henry McMahon, GCMG, GCVO, KCIE, CSI. The following paper was written in January 1936 and is an account of a very unusual Masonic happening which we think will be read with considerable interest. It is reproduced in the Grand Lodge of Scotland Yearbook for 1981, page 79 to 81. The British government in 1906 invited the Emir of Afghanistan to visit India, and on his acceptance of the invitation, I, then Chief Commissioner of Pakistan, was placed in charge of all matters connected with his visit and stay in India. He arrived at the Indian frontier at Landi Kotal, 2nd of January 1907, accompanied by a numerous retinue which included escorts of infantry and cavalry. He was then of 34 years of age and had never before set foot outside his own country. He was a man of very strong and determined character, of very superior intellect, and surprisingly well informed on all general subjects. A few days after his arrival, he astonished me by expressing a wish to become a Freemason, but not knowing his motives, I gave him no encouragement. He returned to the subject on several occasions without success, and it was not until the 22nd of January that I realized how very much he was in earnest. He made me an urgent appeal to assist him in the matter, on which he had said he had set his heart for a very long time. He begged that if it could be done, it should be without the knowledge of any of his staff and people. It may be asked why the Emir should want to be a Freemason and how he came to know anything about it. This seems a convenient stage at which to deal with that question, but I can only do so very briefly because I am able to give but little information on the subject. All I could ever get the Emir to admit was that he had met good men who were Masons, and he knew that Freemasonry to be a good thing, and he wanted to enter it. That he knew something about operative Masonry was evident from the facility with which he recognized the various Masons' marks on the stones in the old Mughal emperors' tombs and palaces that we visited, such as those of Emperor Humayun at Delhi and others. Whether he ever entertained an idea of instituting Freemasonry in Afghanistan, I do not know, but I think not. At any rate, nothing has ever been heard of his subsequently taking any step to do so. This is, however, a digression, and I resume my story. The problem before me was one of extreme difficulty. The only Masonic lodge in India which in any way met the requirements of the case was one in Calcutta, Lodge Concordia, number 3102, with a small but exclusive membership, restricted to British civil and military officers of high standing. We were to arrive in Calcutta in 6 days' time, that was on the 28th, and were to stay there only 1 week. If the Emir was to be made a Mason, it could only be done in Calcutta, and whatever Masonic work had to be done, it must be done at one and the same meeting, apart from the obligation of secrecy, which it would be hard enough to ensure at even one visit to the lodge. Our crowded schedule of travelling, of official and social engagements, made it impossible to fit in more than one Masonic meeting. In other words, if the Emir was to be made a Mason, all 3 degrees must be given to him at the same meeting, and all Masonic regulations about stated periods between proposal, election and degrees must be waived. Only 13 days were available in which to accomplish all this. Impossible as the matter seemed, I was sufficiently impressed with the possible advantages of fulfilling the Emir's wish to make a very strenuous effort. Lord Kitchener, most fortunately, was at that moment the District Grand Master of the Punjab, and I at once communicated with him the facts of the case, begging him to telegraph for an all-embracing dispensation to meet the many requirements of the case from the Grand Master, the Duke of Connaught, who happened to be at the moment on a visit to Ceylon. This he did forthwith, and at once came the reply, quote, "I approve the Emir receiving the 3 degrees and give dispensation. Welcome him into the craft in my name. Connaught." Close quote. With these great obstacles removed, the rest of my task proved less difficult, for on getting into communication with the Right Worshipful Master of Lodge Concordia, Worshipful Brother A.W. Dentith, I found him willing and eager to give all necessary assistance. It remained only to take every possible step to ensure complete secrecy. Brother Dentith called an emergent meeting of his lodge for the 2nd of February at 9:30 p.m., of which notice was given by summons which he himself delivered personally by hand. To understand the vital importance of secrecy, it is necessary to remember that this was the first occasion on which the ruler of Afghanistan had ever ventured leave of his country. He had done so against the wishes and advice of bigoted advisers who prophesied nothing but evil would come of his association with foreign infidels, and that his absence would give dangerous opportunities to ill-wishers to foment conspiracy and trouble. It was therefore a matter of vital importance to prevent any knowledge of his present action from coming to the ears of his following, and thence to the Afghan public. It would give his enemies at home a handle with which great harm could be done. Among the numerous public engagements of the Emir was accordingly arranged a dinner on the 2nd of February with the Commander-in-Chief of India, Lord Kitchener. In the ordinary course, when dining out, the Emir was always accompanied by various members of his Afghan staff, but on this occasion the Emir, at the last moment, expressed a wish to go unaccompanied by any staff as a special compliment to his friend, Lord Kitchener, and thus he and I went alone. Immediately after dinner, at which were only Lord Kitchener and his small personal staff, we drove off, unobserved, to the Masonic Hall where Lodge Concordia was waiting to receive us, and the proceedings of the evening began forthwith. There then follows a list of the 10 senior officers of the Lodge, which I will not repeat here. The Worshipful Master opened the Lodge at 9:45, and then vacated the chair to Brother G. Lane Anderson, the Deputy District Grand Master of Bengal. His Majesty Habibullah Khan, Emir of Afghanistan, was then proposed as a candidate for initiation by the Right Worshipful Brother His Excellency Lord Kitchener, District Grand Master, Punjab, and Commander-in-Chief of India, seconded by Right Worshipful Brother Sir W. Burkitt, District Grand Master of Bengal and Chief Justice of the United Provinces, and the ballot proved unanimous. Sir W. Burkitt, a member and founder of the Lodge, was unable to attend the meeting. The 1st, 2nd and 3rd degrees were then conferred on the candidate in full, with the exception of the preambulation in the 1st and 2nd degrees by Worshipful Brother Lane Anderson, assisted by Right Worshipful Brother Lord Kitchener, who gave the portions of the 1st and 2nd degrees. The unusual feature of the proceedings was the fact that the candidate expressed his unwillingness to take part in any portion of the ceremony until he clearly understood its nature, and as his knowledge of the English language was very imperfect, it was necessary to explain everything to him in his own language, Persian. Knowing the likelihood of this, I had volunteered to carry out the duties of junior deacon in the 1st and senior deacon in the 2nd and 3rd degrees, and throughout those ceremonies I had to carry out a running interpretation of each portion of the ritual in Persian, which naturally somewhat lengthened the proceedings of the evening. This task, moreover, was not made lighter by Lord Kitchener, who, at the conclusion of the third degree, delivered a somewhat lengthy address on the value of Freemasonry, which also needed conversion into Persian. At the conclusion of the ceremonies, which were conducted in a very impressive manner, the Worshipful Master resumed the chair, and in a few graceful terms bade the Emir a warm welcome into Freemasonry and membership of the Lodge. The proceedings terminated at midnight, when the Emir, after being introduced personally to the officers and members of the Lodge, among whom the following were present, and there follows a list of names which I will not repeat here. The Emir took his departure and returned to Lord Kitchener's house, whence I, at a later hour, escorted him home. To mark his gratitude to Lodge Concordia, the Emir presented the Lodge with a very handsome silver cup. I may note that the copy of the Koran, on which he took his obligation, is now in the library of the Grand Lodge of England. It is satisfactory to record that so successful proved the measures taken to ensure secrecy that, notwithstanding the curiosity of the Emir's own following and the strong searchlight of the public and press, which played on every action or movement of the Emir during his visit to India, no knowledge of this Masonic episode ever came to light until after his return to Afghanistan, when, from some unknown source, rumours of the Emir having become a Freemason began to spread, and the fanatical mullahs of the country seized upon them for the purpose of trouble. On this coming to the Emir's knowledge, he summoned the leading mullahs to appear, and at a public durbar informed all present that he was not only a Freemason but proud of being one, and that he had become one to the benefit of his country, and that if ever a mullah were found to criticize his action in this matter, he would pay for it with his head. I cannot conclude this account of the Emir's entry into Freemasonry without recording the important consequences of it. That the Emir was profoundly impressed by Freemasonry became very evident to me from the frequency with which, whenever he and I were alone together, he kept harking back to our Masonic evening in Calcutta, to the various portions of the ceremony, and what had been therein communicated to him. Friendly and cordial as became his feelings towards British people during his intercourse with them, a feeling which grew deeper and stronger each day of his stay in India, I regard it of far less importance than the sense of the confidence and trust in us that gradually grew up in his mind and which he carried away with him to Afghanistan. I am convinced that his experience of Freemasonry with us played no small part in creating that trust, in preserving it, and unweakened throughout the years to come. Among his last words to me on leaving India was the expression of a solemn vow to prove a faithful friend to England as long as England kept faith with him. How loyally he kept his word and was proved throughout the Great War of 1914-18, when time after time missions were sent to Kabul from Turkey and Germany, offering the Emir alluring temptations of territory and power if he would only take the winning side against us in the war. Not only did he hold out loyally against temptation, but, thanks to his firm hand on his country and his border tribes, our northern West Indian frontier enjoyed complete peace throughout the war, so much so that England was able to denude India of British and Indian forces and send them to other fields of war. The value of this to us was almost incalculable, as alas was soon proved when, within a few weeks of the end of the Great War, our loyal friend and ally was struck down by the hands of an assassin. The firm hand that kept peace on our frontier was removed. Afghanistan turned against us, and British troops were sent rushing back in great strength to India. If this had been necessary during the war, the history of that war may well have been changed.
This podcast is for educational purposes and perhaps entertainment. While the Masonic Authors Guild International provides the most accurate information possible, listeners use the information at their own risk. This podcast and its contents are Magi's property, as are all the opinions and the information it presents. Robert L.D. Cooper's, Mark A. Tabert's, and any other speakers' views and opinions within the podcast do not represent nor speak for Freemasonry, any Masonic organization, their former or current employers, in any way, shape, or form. Magi, Cooper, or Tabert will not compensate you in any way whatsoever if you ever happen to suffer any inconvenience due to the information herein contained.